Peace be with you. These are the words that we say together on a weekly basis. And I could see in our gathering here that many said the words back to me. It's inbuilt. It's something that as Christians we have programmed ourselves to embody this reaction to one another. When peace is offered, peace is reciprocated. At least that's the way it should be, right? Well, in today's lessons, we had so many different avenues that I wanted to wander down. There was just a lot of choice. But I was at Silent Retreat a couple of weeks ago, and that retreat was titled Practicing Peace. So I'm going to take inspiration from Jesus' words at the end of the gospel passage today, where he encourages us to have salt in ourselves and to be at peace with one another. And we're going to go deep with peace, the concept, the definition, but also the call that each of us has on our lives to be at peace with one another. And in doing so, to retain our saltiness. So I'd like to invite you just to take a moment to think about what the word peace does for you. Think about what might come up for you. Memories, images, feelings, maybe even a desire for more peace in your life. Holding on to whatever might have come up. If you would like to share, please feel welcome to do so using the chat comments section. It would be lovely for us to have this as a more dialogical conversation about peace. In that, I also want to extend an invitation to us to keep talking about peace in the coming days and in the coming weeks. If you have people around you that you haven't spoken about peace with in a while, maybe see if you can have a conversation with them this week. Maybe the conversation will happen at Holy Hermits Online in some of our gatherings. We certainly can talk of peace to one another. But also maybe taking this into your prayer life as an invitation to try and unravel it and see what God might be saying to you personally, because there's always something that God is inviting us towards. Maybe it's more peace. So I can see we've already had something in the chat, and I thank you for the gift of that, but a sharing of relief when it comes to peace. So thinking about peace now as a definition. Often I think this word is used to describe harmony, tranquility, maybe a sense of easiness. Also, it's quite clear that in our modern usage of the term, we use this word to describe the absence of conflict. The absence of conflict could be the absence of war, actual physical violence, the absence of it being peace. But thinking about biblical peace, and also the peace that we are called to embody and that Jesus encourages us to embody in the gospel passage today, let's think spiritually what peace might mean and what it means to be lived out in community. Because if it is just the absence of conflict, it would be far easier for all of us just to retreat from one another. To just go, nah, you know what, I'm going to take this hermit thing even further and just ditch the community part. I'm going to live all by myself, no other humans, maybe some animals. Even there, we can see there isn't total peace in the animal kingdom. So yeah, we might take that with a grain of salt. But yeah, nah, I can't do this peace thing if I have to be around people. Because guess what? We do have a lot of trouble with this. Conflict is at the heart of who we are as humans, because each of us has such a different experience. In our family of origin, we can see that we inherit all sorts of situations, all sorts of relational ties, intergenerational even. A lot of the time, peace is not with us the moment that we are born. And then there are all the experiences that happen to us through life, the conflicts that we come up against, even as we're little kids learning how to play with other little kids. Now, I can definitely say that having been bullied at school, kids can be really awful to one another. They notice difference, they name it, and often they will do the whole faction thing. You know, you're my friend today. Oh, no, you're not my friend anymore. I'm not friends with you today. All that stuff. So very quickly, peace is hard to maintain as a little person. Then thinking about what happens to us as we start to grow towards adult life. Then conflict has higher stakes sometimes, starts to come into workplaces if we are people who work, or it comes into other spaces where we are trying to get along with other people who have different ideas, views, and maybe even goals and aims to us. So, how does this invitation that Jesus is extending to us actually live out, knowing that naturally we humans find living peace very, very difficult? If we have a look at the first lesson today from Esther, we can see that she uses hold my peace as a way of talking about refraining from speaking up and talking about what Haman had been plotting to do to the Jewish people. She said, if it hadn't had such high stakes for my people, I would have held my peace. So there we can see that this has been used to talk about holding back or not speaking up. But that's not what our biblical character chose to do. She chose to speak up, and the result of that was justice. But in any human justice, it's always a rough justice. And so conflict continues in the Old Testament as the Jewish people, God's chosen people, try and figure out how they rub along with the rest of the ancient world. In our psalm, we had different expressions of what it means to be in relationship with God. So thinking about our relationship with God as well, sometimes we're not always at peace with our Creator. God asks us to do really hard things. So how do we cultivate a sense of peace in that relationship with the one who we can't hide anything from, who knows absolutely every single bit of us, the one who loves us despite all of this and loves us enough to come to be with us in the person of Christ? That leads to some really difficult parts of Jesus' message today. So we hear at the beginning of the gospel passage that Jesus is brought a complaint really from one of his disciples. Hey, Jesus, there are some other blokes who are healing people in your name. Some other lasses as well who are starting to go about and talk about you as if they know you well. But we're your disciples. We're the ones who have given up our livelihoods, walked away from our family systems, been following you through hardship, and are learning at your side. We're the ones who are getting the instruction directly, not them. So you got to stop them from doing this stuff. They're going to put us out of a job. To which Jesus responds with something a bit challenging. No, if you were to do that, then it would be better for you to jump into the sea and sink. That's really hard to think about. But he talks about putting stumbling blocks in front of other little ones. And in this, we see what might be difficult for us to swallow, but actually can lead us into greater practicing of peace. Jesus doesn't belong to us in the sense that we can guard Christ, that we need to keep Jesus pure or his message pure and not share with others who maybe express it in a different way. This can bring us into maybe a reflection of what it means to live in our world today, where there are so many other world religions, other ways of expressing spirituality. Even within the church, we have so many denominations and flavors. So it would be better for us just not to try and do the job at all, to just go away, than to try and gatekeep Jesus and what God offers in the life of Christ. Let's hold on to that as we're thinking about peace. He then goes on to talk about if a body part causes you to sin, then you should cut it off. Now, this is pretty difficult. Thinking about our bodies, thinking about those of us who live with bodies that struggle at different points, which is pretty much every human, even if we don't have a lived experience of chronic pain or disability, as a general rule, at one stage in every human's life, they will have an injury or an illness or something that disables them. So we could hear this part of the passage and kind of go, whoa, no, no. Jesus is not talking about self-mutilation, surely not. No, he's being really dramatic here. Jesus is great at being dramatic, especially using stories to be dramatic and get reactions from those who are hearing and interacting with his parables, his stories, and his alliterations. So thinking about a body part as an example of something which causes us to sin or to cause somebody else to sin, then it's about cutting it off. So a little bit of surgical action here, cutting off to heal. Well, that maybe is the really hard work of being in community with one another. It's about sacrificing parts of ourselves that maybe we don't need in order to be together, the things that get in the way of moving towards another person or even towards creation. That we're not to hold on to those things, even if they do feel like our own body parts. And we can't do this alone because it is so difficult for us to actually notice what's going on within ourselves, even within our own behaviors. A level of self-awareness is something that definitely we can strive towards, but we really do need to rely on those around us who love us to let us know when we might be putting barriers up for ourselves to be able to embrace the fullness of life and peace, but also when what we are doing might be preventing others from living into that peace. And that's bloody hard work. So I think in this passage, Jesus is not talking about, oh, okay, we have to be really like strict about this discipline of cutting parts of sin out of our lives. He's not being like, religious about it, because a lot of what Jesus said and did wasn't religious. He, in fact, was kind of like, religious is good as long as it's helping, but this is the main thing. This is the stuff you need to do. Relationship with God, relationship with one another, relationship with the world, that's the work. So thinking about practicing peace then, it involves truth-telling. It does involve speaking up, but it might also involve a little bit of stepping back from our own desires, our own ideas, and letting ourselves get out of the way in order to move towards another. So I mentioned that I'd been on spiritual retreat a couple of weeks back and that it was about practicing peace. And in that space, I have to say, alongside my fellow clergy, with our wonderful retreat leaders, we were very confronted by the parts of us that did not lead to peace. The parts of us that keep us back from others, the parts of us that often might try and avoid conflict, or even go in sort of guns blazing, so to speak, and create more of it in trying to root out the sin. It's very difficult to think of as not only someone who is trying to be at peace in a silent retreat, and it's not very peaceful because we're looking at ourselves really, really minutely, but also to see that the transformation that happened in that space involved a lot of vulnerability. We had to be honest with ourselves and also honest with one another. So I wonder how we can translate that into our community online, this space where we are trying to be together from all sorts of different places, different walks of life, different stages, different experiences. How can we really move towards one another and build on that togetherness that we already try and foster? Doing so with vulnerability, knowing that by being fully ourselves and bringing our full selves into the space, we'll choose one another. We won't retreat. We won't hold back. We will practice peace by being active. So I'm still trying to figure that out. I don't have the answer. Gosh, what a terrible sermon. So So I'd love for this to be an ongoing conversation. Let's really sit with this. What does it mean to practice peace? Peace not being, just harmony and beautiful bliss, but peace being the movement towards one another so that we can keep one another accountable to who Christ calls us to be. And Christ calls us to be God's agents in the world, also spreading that love and that peace out in a ripple effect. So it's within the body of Christ that in giving peace to one another, we can equip one another to do that work and really stay together in it. So there's two things we could finish with. One would be a poem, which was written at the retreat. Maybe we'll have that. Another would be, I actually learned how to say peace be with you in sign language. So option 1 is a poem. Option 2 is sign language lesson. Which would we like? Please give me some fingers up on the screen, everyone that's here. All right, I'm seeing sign language. Fantastic. All right, the poem, if you would like to encounter it and spend time with it, I'll put it in the send out this week, but also it is on our blog in the Practicing Peace reflection. You can go there and see it. It's pretty good, if I do say myself. We wrote it together. But here we go, some sign language, and this might really help us in the passing of peace on screen. So if we take our pointer finger and our thumb, put them together like this, that's the first step. Then we bring them together and touch them. Now we are going to draw a moustache. Here we go. This is peace. A moustache. A couple of times is good. And there are a couple of ways to say be with you, but the one that I really liked was peace between us. So that is then if we take one hand and sort of put it out like a present, a gift. The other hand, we take two fingers. Often this is sort of saints' use for blessing, so I thought that was pretty good. And we go between us. So from the other person towards you, from the other person towards you, from the other person towards you. So we put those two actions together. Fingers together, moustache, from the other person towards you and back again. Okay, let's put it all together. Peace between us. Peace between us. Peace between us. Amen. Let's give it a go.